show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. Them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June 14th, 2021. Gone Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. Divinity Vice. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, they had signs up in Milwaukee all over the place talking about deer the deer. And the hitman Kevin Durant was without his bodyguard, and the deer took advantage of him and his homeboy.
Yeah.
Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They're there to help take care of some of the wounds that those horns were put on.
Yeah, we ever get hit by a deer in the backside is not a good feeling. It's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, Big C, it really is good to pause, but it's so hot in California when you pause, it's like fire comes out of his mouth. It's all fair level war, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, more people are doing it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to get a toothbrush in the mail to you about that fire coming out of your mouth. Once again, I want to talk to people about help saving our veterans in this country, Charlton. We lose over 24 a day to suicide, a very horrific disease. And that disease, Charlton, comes from mental health. As we think about it, we all think about our physical health, especially here during COVID-19, but we have to put more emphasis on mental health in America. It is an epidemic, Charlton, and it is causing the lives of too many human beings that feel they have no outlet because they lack communication that is given to them by others. And we need to spend the time to find out how people are doing, not just when they have a cold or a sprained ankle, Charlton, but how they're doing mentally. Have they been talking to someone? This is what helps stem suicide in America, Charlton, by paying attention, showing someone that you care. And so we, as a country, as well as us, try to give out this number all the time, Charlton. But we need to also have that conversation with people and just say, how are you doing?
Very well said, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones, even if that loved one is you. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the Home Run King, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships doing it, Nike's been doing it, sports teams are doing it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are sponsored by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. My goodness, Big C, there's a lot of stuff going on in the sports universe. So much going on with NBA basketball, Major League Baseball, We have the College World Series. We just crowned the softball Women's College World Series. Now we have the College World Series. That's about to get underway too. But before I get into any sports, I want to just say, it's like you mentioned with the crisis hotline. Everybody, if you get the chance to reach out to somebody, reach out to them. If you feel you're being attacked, it's okay to go into your shell. Just find someone that has an understanding. But Big C, I think you can relate to what I'm going to ask you, and I haven't even told you. There was a professional soccer player that collapsed overseas, Big C, and I guess they have them on airplanes too. It's called a defibrillator. It saved his life. It was Denmark versus Finland. It was last week. And Big C, we talk so much about people checking up on mental health, but it was a defibrillator that saved the life of a soccer player, Danish soccer star Christian Eriksen, collapsed on the field, and they had that to save his life. Are American teams equipped with that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, American teams have been equipped with defibrillators for a long time. I mean, when you think about players having heart conditions, Charlton, and having these attacks that occurred, it happened during the NHL season, Charlton, where a player collapsed on the bench and had a heart attack, and they were able to revive him with the defibrillator on the sideline, Charlton. I think it's become mainstay in all American sports after the death of Hank Gathers back in 1993.
Yeah.
The Loyola Marymount basketball player, when most of America witnessed his death on television during a basketball game. But the first time, this ever happened on a professional field that I saw, Charlton, was Chuck Hughes, a wide receiver back with the Detroit Lions back in October of 1971. Where he collapsed on the field and died of a heart attack, Charlton.
Wow. This
is a very common thing, having heart problems in America. But sporting events all over America and around the world, Charlton, you see the ambulance that are sitting in the tunnel. It is mandatory that a defibrillator is there, just like even on aircraft, Charlton, they carry defibrillators.
Now that you say that, I realize even at high school football games, there's always an ambulance there, and most people think, hey, that's just for a broken bone or if someone gets a dislocated shoulder. That's what it's there for. But I never really thought about that, and I appreciate the fact that not only were they there talking about it, the players came around to his defense. I think it was about 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. It was on the 13th. Danish team doctor confirmed that Eriksen suffered a cardiac arrest during his emergency on the field, and he's stable now. And it seems to be doing very well, Big C, but it's unclear if he'll ever come back to playing. And you and I talk about this all the time. We go back and forth, who's better, East Coast, West Coast, South, and North, and all that stuff. But there's something, I wasn't aware of what you mentioned, 1971 with Detroit's player, but the Corey Stringer, I believe he played for the Vikings a couple of decades ago, but he had heat exhaustion, if I'm correct, but there's nothing to help with heat exhaustion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you come into training camp and you weigh 400 pounds, you're a health risk right off the back, and that's what happened to the late Corey Stringer with the Minnesota Vikings offensive tackle, Charlton. He came into training camp, and he weighed 400 pounds. NFL teams have gotten to the point now, Charlton, when you come into training camp at 400 pounds, they just release you because they know that you're a health hazard.
Yeah. I just want, and I know everybody has their own thought. I don't think they even have defibrillators in classrooms on college campuses. You think most college kids are probably healthy, but that's what we have
you have to understand, every academic institution in America now is required to carry defibrillators. They may not be in the classroom, but they're in the nurse's office, Charlton, where they're accessible, because a teacher may not know how to administer it, but the nurse can be there within normally less than 2 minutes, Charlton, and that's enough time to save a young person's life. But they become mandatory in every educational institution in America.
Yeah, and I appreciate that knowledge because sometimes everything you need is around you, but you don't really pay attention to it. Like every school has a case of emergency break open glass fire extinguishers. I remember seeing those when I was in elementary school. And I'm going to say something, it is what it is, Big C. It's just a thought. There are some times, and I'm not saying this related to this, but there are times when an athlete will put something in their system. We were joking about Baffert putting stuff in the butt of a horse to make that horse run faster. And I know down in Southern California, I'm not saying this story is related, I'm just saying it. There were some same instances where horses, I think 28 horses, had passed away at Santa Anita Racetrack, And rumor has it there were things being injected into these horses to help them become bigger, stronger, and faster. I'm not saying that's in any way related to what happened with this soccer player, but is that a red flag for athletes, Big C, or is it just que sera, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I wouldn't even put an allegation like that out there
No, I'm not
against
trying
athletes.
to.
I mean, heart conditions can be genetic. Anything can cause that.
Yeah.
And, you pass a physical. I mean, these players are in peak condition. But the heart is just a muscle like anything else, Charlton. It can stop working like any other muscle on the body.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So, again, not trying to make any correlation, but it's just a thought that oftentimes we don't know what happens to people, whether it was Hank Gathers or anybody or this situation. I'm glad the young man is alive.
The situation with Hank Gathers is that he stopped taking his medication.
Yeah.
He was on a blood thinner and a heart medication, Charlton, but it made him lethargic and he could not perform.
Yeah.
And he reduced his medication on his own, not against the doctor's advice, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's what unfortunately helped cause his death.
I had a coworker of mine that 50 years old was on high blood pressure medication, thought he could get off of it because a small circle was telling him CBD just as good at blood pressure, and he ended up having a stroke when he stopped taking his medication. He's still alive, but he's lost part of his body, and he's still working with rehab to get that back together. But it's all fair and level war. Just wanted to remind people, if you feel, especially coming out of COVID, so many more people are out running around trying to get back in shape again. If you feel like you're overexerting yourself, just take a pause and just stop and let people know where you are, just in case you fall out. Oftentimes, no one works out with a defibrillator in their back pocket, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a situation that it was an odd scenario that occurred. You're talking about one of the better athletes in the world when you think about soccer players, how active they are and how much they run and the endurance that they possess. This was just an isolated incident that was unfortunate, but it was fortunate, Charlton, to have some of the best of the world's medical staff around at a moment's notice and able to intervene and save the young man's life.
That's very well said. That following the collapse and the obviously medical emergency right there involving Denmark's player Christian Eriksen, a crisis meeting's taking place with both teams, Big C, and I'm sure the whole league, and especially the NFL talking about getting back in the swing of things. We just have the OTAs. Everybody's going through their physicals. I heard over the weekend there was a former athlete that was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, and he had an injury, and he failed his physical. It wasn't heart related. It was just a physical that he failed. When looking at him, he looks like he's in great shape, 6'4", 220 pounds. How in the world is he going to miss a physical, Big C? But it happens, and that's why I encourage everyone to get their checkups. But going back to the thing that happened in Europe, as the players gathered around to kind of shield off from the TV viewing audience what was going on, I thought was very classy. He obviously gave a thumbs up and let them know that he was okay. But thanks, you always do this every show, thanking our emergency medical responders, our first responders. They're not just in the United States, they're everywhere, and they really do deserve a standing applause. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, these are essential people in the world to keep everybody going.
Yeah.
And you never know how important it is until you need one, whether it's in an emergency or non-emergency situation. Their job is to save life and preserve life, Charlton, and they're the best in the world at doing it.
Yeah, they're the best in the world at doing it. Really appreciate all of that, and may they keep doing great things, because everybody you really don't know that you need something until it's there. And thank goodness they have the right training to do that. So everybody, please keep in mind, if you're out working out, if you don't feel good, you don't have to run and be a Superman. Just take a pause, get yourself together, and make sure you're healthy. Big C, I want to run back to the world of the NBA, because I'm sure that a Buck doesn't have a defibrillator, Big C. All they can do is kick and scream when somebody's approaching them trying to take their height, Big C. The Milwaukee Bucks, they had a renaissance, Big C, over the weekend. And going into this playoff series with the Brooklyn Nets, this all-star team, when they're healthy, no one gave the Bucks a chance when they fell down 2 games to none, Big C. But the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he said, not so fast, my friend. They've actually shown life. They've gotten up off of that barbecue grill, Big C. And them good old boys are kicking and dunking on everybody, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, had you ever watched a game film prior to playing your next opponent?
Yeah.
Your coaches ever show you a film?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Chris Paul did a commercial a couple of years ago, a State Farm commercial, where they had this deer cornered in his garage. And that deer raised havoc. He knocked down bowling balls, he scratched up up his car. He knocked out all the windows on his garage door and everything. And he raised hell. And then when he walked out of there, Charleston, he left his tongue out at it. And so this was the film that Budenholzer showed the Milwaukee Bucks prior to playing the New Jersey Nets. Getting into Milwaukee.
Oh,
and
man.
The only thing that the Nets had over the Milwaukee Bucks was Kevin Durant's bodyguard with a gun. Once that gun was gone, they knew their season was over with. And so they can go out now and raise hell on the New Jersey Nets.
Yeah, these deer shoot back. It's a fair fight when the deer has a gun too. Guys bragging about their prize catch when they have a deer mounted on their wall. Well, did the deer have a gun too? No. This deer's have guns in Milwaukee. It's second quarter, game 4. All-Star got an entry pass in the middle of the paint before an unlucky step turned his right ankle. The great Kyrie Irving, Big C, knocked him out for the rest of the second round of the playoff series, that second half. But also, rumor has it that he may not even be available for the next game. But I want to go back to that moment. Isn't it so rare that guys can jump so high? We talk about guys like Vince Carter with his slam dunk at the NBA All-Star competition. So many guys can leap out of the building. We rarely see this type of an injury where a player can jump so high in the air and come down and turn his ankle that way, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, when you land awkwardly now and you land on someone else's foot, Charleston, this is a very common occurrence in professional basketball that players are spraining ankles. But, you know, the biggest difference in this game was Giannis Antetokounmpo understanding how tall he was. Take your big butt down in the paint. And that's what he did. He scored 26 of his 34 points in the paint. He stopped sitting out there saying, oh, I'm one of them 6'11 guys that can knock down threes. But I'm also a 6'11 guy that can knock down two if I'm only 5 feet away from the basket. So he did that. And he made a living on the Brooklyn Nets by doing that, Charleston. And that's what he needs to continue to do if he expects for the Milwaukee Bucks to continue to move forward in this tournament. I mean, really, when you look at it right now, who is the most pressure on? Is the most pressure on the two-time NBA Finals MVP, or is the pressure on the two-time regular season MVP in the next 3 games, Charlton? That's what you really have to look at. Is Kevin Durant good enough to carry a team without 2 sidekicks, or is Milwaukee Bucks going to kick him out the gym this time?
Man, it's amazing when you think about Kyrie Irving. He went down in the hallway toward the locker room. In the second quarter, the Bucks finished off a 107-96 win to even that series at 2 games apiece. And you're right, Big C. Kevin Durant's amazing. But like you and I talk about, whether it's Bill Russell with 11 championships, Magic Johnson 5 championships, Kareem has 6. You know, you don't win it by yourself. And Durant, you know, I've often heard this, and maybe every kid has heard this. On playground basketball, you have this bully of a player, kind of like the Bat Boys of Detroit back in the day when the league let them run roughshod over players. That bully, he doesn't have to be the biggest player. He doesn't have to be the fastest or the tallest player, but he plays with a moxie about him that you're not going to bully him. And I think that's what happened with Tucker, who also out of the University of Texas, I believe. And when he got into the face of Durant, he's like, I don't care how good you shoot. You can't shoot when you got an elbow in your chest, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant, when you look at this game against the Bucks, Charlton, he was out without his sidekick and his bodyguard. So, I mean, he was out there and he was walking around with a little fear because it's like, what do I do now?
What do I do now? And Tucker, I know no athlete would admit this, but I know there are fighters that admit, man, I know I can't beat this guy. I just want to get paid. So they try to last around or whatever, backpedaling and holding him, all that jazz. But if there was a man-to-man fight, you know Kevin Durant would lose that fight 10 out of 10 times to Tucker. And I think even in martial arts, they say even if you're a black belt, do not look your opponent in the eye. And I know sometimes men go mano a mano, Big C, chest to chest, because they know within about a second or two somebody's going to pull them apart. I really believe that Tucker's gotten in Kevin Durant's head, and that's the reason why he's been off his game just a little bit, even though he's still dropping nearly 30, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, nobody has a fight in the NBA. It's like girls going at it. A pillow fight is
I know some tough girls, though.
I think the whole thing about where the Milwaukee Bucks are is that they got physical as a team. Not just against Kevin Durant, against everybody. They said if we lose, we're going to go down like men. We're not going to go down like sisters. And so they went out there, Charlton, and started playing legitimate physical basketball. The NBA, the officials will turn their eye on it if you're consistent in playing one way. And so if you're always putting a body on somebody, that's what they will allow. Kevin Durant has had a free run throughout his NBA career. I mean, he's a great player. You know,
He's amazing.
Either number one or number two, depending on which list that you look at, far as greatest player in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
He can get his shot on anybody at any time, but he has to be on rhythm, Charlton. And everybody, even Giannis, has to be on rhythm. Middleton has to be on rhythm. Lopez has to be on rhythm. Even Kyrie Irving, prior to going down, has to be on rhythm. And when you take a player out of his rhythm,
Yeah.
he's no longer in that comfort zone. He's not just going to feel at ease getting off the shot that he wants to.
Yeah, I want to, the mainstream media doesn't like this all-star team. They criticize Golden State when Durant joined Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers, Draymond Green, them good old boys. And now they've done the similar thing, East Coast style, Big C. And I hear a lot of people saying, I don't want to see them win because maybe they're jealous. They want to see everything great in life. They want the greatest mortgage loan. They want the greatest car, the greatest relationship. But you assemble a great team. What is it about people that hate when greatness is assembled outside of everything else that's great, Big C? Your thoughts?
But who is the guys that are saying that they don't like the team, that they don't like players being together? I mean, throughout the history of sports, Charlton, and I don't care whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, great teams have been assembled.
Yeah.
Free agencies have moved around, Charlton, to go to franchise to franchise. In the NFL, you look at teams that have been assembled. Free agency created that, Charlton, super teams in football. San Francisco 49ers created a super team out of free agency and won championships out of it, Charlton. When you look at baseball, the New York Yankees did it all the time. Assembled super teams. The Los Angeles Dodgers did the same thing also. Every NBA team has always assembled super teams. When you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, you make trades and you sign free agents. Back in the Showtime days, Charlton, they made trades to get draft picks. They got rid of players. You assemble a super team even through the draft, but Kareem was not drafted by the Lakers. You look at the Philadelphia 76ers during the Dr. J and Moses Malone era. They didn't draft anybody who was starting on that team.
No.
Everybody came in via free agents. So when people want to talk about, they're assembling all these superstars, it's been done forever in the NBA. For the last 40 years in the NBA, teams have assembled superstars. The New York Knicks did it in 1973 when they brought in John Lucas and Earl Monroe to help the Knicks win their second championship. So this is the things that teams have always done, Charlton. When you got young people in the media that are so dumb they can't read, they have to look at a sports highlight to understand what's going on in the game. This is the kind of vitriol that you get.
Big C, you've had your collard greens today. You had your collard greens today, Big C, with the hot sauces all fair in Love and War. You talked about watching a film on your opponent. You talked about what Giannis Antetokounmpo, Big C. They should call him King Giannis, not the freak. King Giannis is what they should call him. And he realized that God made him 7 feet tall for a reason, not to shoot threes. And he started realizing that Lion King that he is and started drinking that lion's blood, Big C. The Nets, on the other hand, they shot 4 of 19 from 3, Big C. Think about that. They shot 4 of 19 from three-pointers. And they scored 56 points in 30 minutes after Irving went down. But when you think about their success, you're not going to put Durant down in the post because he's going to be banged up a lot by Tucker. Tucker's whose job is to rough up Durant, a lot like Pete Carroll said, hold them every play. They can't call it. They can't call a penalty every time. Durant was 3 of 12 shooting with Tucker as his primary defender in Game 4. Durant can score on anybody, but he's only 3 of 12 against Tucker. That's like 25%, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you took math in school, Charles.
No, I Googled it.
But I mean, like I said, Tucker was physical with Durant. He's not going to just give up on the play and let him get off his shot. He knows that Durant is going to get points during the game. But also you got to look at how the Bucks were defending the rest of the New Jersey Nets, Charlton. You can let one individual get all his points. So if you can hold everybody else down, that is the critical mass that they were looking at, and that's what they accomplished. When you had great team defense all over the floor, Blake Griffin was a non-entity in this game. I mean, when you look at Game 1 and Blake Griffin looked like an all-star of his old self, now he looks like a shell of his old self. When the pressure is put on those non-X-factor players, Charlton, that's where the game was decided. Middleton went out there and played a good game. Holiday, had a little pep in his step. Looked like he was in rutting season, Charlton. So those deers went out there and had a little fun.
It got to be pretty scary when you go out, and I like what you said about Chris Paul in that deer commercial, Big C. That could be an outside preview of the NBA Finals. Who knows? But if you are cooking and the deer gets up off the grill and kicks you, that has to be a pretty scary feeling, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's a scary feeling when anything gets up. But the Nets have been picked to be in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Because of 3 players on their roster. Last I checked, every NBA team kicks off with 12 guys, Charlton, on the roster.
Yeah.
But when you're shorthanded and you haven't given that bench enough playing time, Charlton, when you're sitting there in critical playoff time, that's what's going to hurt you. I mean, we saw that with Denver. When they were without their 3 top guards, what happens to them? They got swept by the Suns.
Yeah.
Now you have the Nets without their 2 top guards. What do they have as a backup scenario?
Yeah, don't have a lot of hope there. Again, same thing with the Lakers. When LeBron went down, Davis went down, people get hurt. It changes things. But since you brought it up, I want to, number one, congratulations, Milwaukee. It's nice when animals fight back. Like I thought I was watching Mutual of Omaha. Mutual of Omaha, it's people you can count on when the going's rough. I thought it's nice to see when animals fight back. It's all fair. It's never word from Milwaukee. NBA playoffs is it's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. The great Nelly was taking off his clothes, and Chris Paul was keeping his clothes on, but they took the Denver Nuggets out of the playoffs. They swept the Denver Nuggets, advanced to the Western Conference Finals, and Chris Paul is Mozart, Big C, when he's out there orchestrating on the basketball court. Whether you like that deer in that commercial or not, he is Mozart, Big C. No team was better against quality competition than the Phoenix Suns during the regular season. And so far, that's holding true in the playoffs as well. Since they were down 2-1 to the LA Lakers, they've run off 6 in a row, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they've actually won off 7 in a row since they were down to the Lakers. They won 7 consecutive playoff games. I mean, they've been hot, and it's been led by their backcourt. You know, and that's the difference. We just looked at New Jersey where their backcourt is gone.
Yeah.
But the Suns' backcourt in this last game is sweeping the Nuggets. They accounted for 71 points.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to counter when you got 71 points coming out of the backcourt of a team. And like I said, the Nuggets were out their top 3 guards, so the guys who were playing them was all backups. And Phoenix did what you have to do in that situation. You take advantage of the lesser players when you have an opportunity.
Yeah, you take advantage of what's out there. Just like that bug on that grill, you don't care who's barbecuing. He's going to kick whoever barbecuing in the face and run off the grill. The great Phoenix Suns, they did the sweep of Denver on Sunday. It was 125-118. That's the only game they did not win in double digits, Big C. They won that one by 8 points when you think about it, Big C. Actually 7 points. But advancing to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2010. That's a long time, 2010, Big C. And they will face the winner of the series tonight, the Utah Jazz and Los Angeles Clippers. You know, Divinity Vice, he came, he saw, he conquered, Big C. The great Chris Paul, also known as Mozart. He dropped a season-high 37 points, Big C, the most in a playoff game since a playoff career-high 41 in 2018 postseason. He's 36 years old, but he's playing like he's 20 years old, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this guy has all the floor savvy that you ever want to expect out of a veteran guard. And he's delivered game in and game out. If you look at what they've done in their first 2 series in the playoffs, Charlton, they've proven that they've played against teams that don't have the backcourt to match up.
Yeah.
The Lakers had no backcourt personnel to match up. Denver had no backcourt personnel to match up. So you don't try to force your team into something that they're not good at. You know when you have that mismatch, that's what you go to that mismatch all the time. They weren't worried about going into the paint. They just controlled the perimeter in their first 2 series.
Yeah, they were doing their thing. When you think about it, he averaged in this series 24.3 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds a game, which is pretty good for a 36-year-old young man, Big C. Basically, a salary dump the last 2 seasons. The great Devin Booker is a star. If Phoenix is rising, dropping 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and continue to score strong no matter where he is on the court. I want to just bring up a point about Chris Paul. Chris Paul found his spot. It's like the top of the free throw line, just to the corner, Big C, and that's his spot. It's amazing that he's the size of guys like Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, and you see guys like him that usually pull up for 3. If the big man can learn what Chris Paul is trying to teach them, it's easier to make a basket when you're about 8 feet away than when you're about 25 feet away, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a guy that's been around for 16 years. He's not worried about getting on the highlight reel on some sports show, Charlton.
Yeah.
He understands that winning is the optimum goal of a game when you go into it. And it's not about one-on-one and individual accolades, Charlton. It's about what you can get your team to. You can go out there and have a triple-double and your team loses.
Right.
You go out there and score 45 points and your team loses.
Yeah.
But if you play in the mid-range, Charlton, as far as being a facilitator, what Chris Paul has been able to do in every team that he's been with, Charlton, he has helped make them better. He hasn't worried about individual accolades since early in his career.
Right.
He understands this is a team sport. And that's what happens when you go to college for 3 and 4 years. You understand it's a team sport, not an individual accolade.
Not trying to make the highlight list. Before we get to the Big C Pauls, the Joker finished 22 points, 9 of 17 shooting, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, had 0 turnovers. I know he's the league MVP, mainstream media. I don't know what they're going to say now that he's gone out of the playoffs. Their NBA All-Star MVP that won 91 first-place votes is gone. But I'll give anyone credit that can play in this game. There's a lot of guys wishing they could play NBA ball. I thought the league did a bad thing. They didn't listen to Larry Bird when he said, do you think they paid to watch me drop 30 or watch you call fouls? When he got the foul, of course, it was a hard foul. I don't think he tried to hurt the opponent for Phoenix. He even went and said, I apologize after they kicked him out of the game. But this took New York City in a game 4 at home, where it's winner take all, win or go home, and they took the MVP, which was Denver's only chance, and they went to the New York. They called somebody in New York, and that was not the most egregious foul I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of Detroit bad boys play Big C, but a foul, flagrant one, yeah. But somebody from New York kicked him out, and you don't need to do that. He didn't punch him with his fist. He didn't slap him with an open hand. He swiped down hard on the ball. It happened to graze his face, and I thought maybe 20% acting on the flop, just my opinion. But to get kicked out of a game as an MVP, you got to punch somebody with an open fist, or at least with his open hand. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we've seen bad calls throughout the playoffs, not just in this series, but in all series, that you look at some of these scenarios and you wonder who the hell is making the call. I saw a foul a couple of games ago, Charlton, where they called a foul on the play. He didn't even touch the shooter.
No.
And they called a foul on him. They went back to the replay from 3 angles. He didn't even get close to it. But the shooter flopped. And the officials didn't even go to the replay.
Yeah.
They just let it stand.
Yeah.
But this is what happens. But, I give credit to Jokic in this scenario, Charlton, because not only did he get eliminated, and he wasn't the first MVP to get eliminated. When you think about the all-star cast of MVPs that have gone down in the first round of the playoffs after being unanimous MVPs in the NBA, think about this. Look at the elite group that he joined, Charlton, this all-star cast. Let me give you number 1. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar lost in the first round of the playoffs. Dirk Nowitzki, being an MVP, lost in the first round of the playoffs. Russell Westbrook, your buddy, he lost in the first round of the playoffs being the MVP. The great Moses Malone lost in the first round, being an MVP in the NBA. Wes Unseld, the great late Wes Unseld, lost in the first round, being an MVP of the NBA. And all these guys were mainstream NBA MVPs. So Dirk Nowitzki joined that elite group of those other 5 MVPs that were eliminated in the first round.
Yeah, the Joker joined them all. It's all fair and level. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And after we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the words of the NBA, in the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. We'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. There's a game that happened in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Clippers and the Utah Jazz, and word has it, Tyronn Lue gave a press conference, and they were showing the great Donovan Mitchell, and he said, is this the man who wrecked the buffet at the Harrah Club this morning? And the great Eddie Murphy Beverly Hills Cop, and Mitchell was trying to do his thing, but Paul George says, hold on, there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Paul George, Big C, that good old boy, much maligned Paul George, playoff scoring 20 of his 31 points in the first half. He set the much-needed tone for the LA Clippers on Saturday night. The great Kawhi Leonard does this thing all the time, dropping 24 points. of his 34 points. In the second half, it was like a seesaw, and the Clippers routed the Utah Jazz. It was 132 to 106. It's amazing when guys come to the Pacific Ocean. If they're not used to surfing, Big C, sometimes they get dumped in the water. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they may have been able to go to one of those cannabis clubs to get a little relaxation coming back home and got that distance of being in the mountains off their chest, Charlton. But the Clippers played like the Clippers should play. I mean, they've been touted as potentially the best team in Los Angeles. And when you have this host of superstars, I mean, they got rid of Doc Rivers saying that was the reason why they weren't able to advance. But I think that, you know, when you look at the combination of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they are delivering right now. Charlton, they become the third pair in playoff history in their first 10 games to average 20 points and 10 assists, Charlton, over the first 10 games of a playoff season. I mean, the other two combos to do that were Jerry West and Elgin Baylor with the Los Angeles Lakers, and Shaquille O'Neal and the late Kobe Bryant with the Los Angeles Lakers. So they've entered some rarefied company, Charlton, in playing. It's just a matter, can they keep that momentum going?
Can they keep that momentum going? You know, it was the great Kawhi Leonard. He grew up in, I believe he went to high school in Moreno Valley in Southern California, and the great Paul George, he grew up in Palmdale, which is up northern Los Angeles County. So two good old boys coming right back down the mountain to get their jobs done in the world of the NBA. And then George went to Fresno State. He was going to go to Georgetown, went to Fresno State, and the claw of the great Kawhi Leonard.
More paper bags than Fresno. They can hide it with the fruit again.
The fruit basket of the world is off fair level war. And then the great Kawhi Leonard went down to San Diego State, the Aztecs. So you know he knows how to surf, Big C. But it was George's first 30-point game since April 23rd, when the Clippers needed to keep their playoff title hopes alive. And the Clippers now can even the series with a 2-apiece split. They got to get that done the same way Milwaukee stood up against Brooklyn, Big C. If they win at home tonight in Game 4, it's going to be so important, because if you lose Game 4, you may as well have lost Game 3. But there's something about that sold-out crowd full of what, Big C? Paper bags at the Staples Center helped. And your thoughts?
Well, you know, the thing about the brown bags in LA, it could be two types of green here, so you got to worry about what they're waving around in the arena. But I mean, they're desperation mode right now when you look at the Clippers. They're in a must-win situation. They cannot go down 3-1 going back to Utah and giving them that hot Utah team that advantage at home.
Yeah, you know, Conley's not going to play again for Utah. I was telling you last game of Utah, that good old boy was dropping, Mitchell was dropping points like he was at a ping pong game, Big C, kept going in. But he also, a lot like, not as bad as what happened with Brooklyn, Big C, but he did injure his ankle again, Mitchell. I don't know how it's going to affect him, but come on. Football players can injure an ankle and they get 6 days off to get it ready. Basketball players, you can't turn around in 2 days. I don't care how much hurt no more they give them and be effective. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I beg the difference. Basketball players are used to this quick turnaround. You have these hyperbaric chambers. You have so many different types of medical assistance that you can use nowadays. The technology has become so advanced with the muscle stimulation, Charlton. And players get 24-hour treatment. It's not just going to the training room and get that treatment for an hour. No, the treatment is 24 hours. They will keep a physical therapist with you all night long if required, Charlton, to get you ready to play in that next game.
Yeah, all night long is nice when your physical therapist is playing the great Lionel Richie all night long. It's all fair and level, where we will see that players can come out, and if they can do it, they'll do the best they can to keep going in the playoffs. Big C, I know you talked about that buck sometime. That venison tastes good. They say if you go out and get a buck, you got to get them early, because the meat's better if you in their misery early, if that makes sense to you. But the Hawks, I don't know what it's like for Alfred Hitchcock's Birds, Big C. They invaded the south of Atlanta. The Hawks versus the 76ers. In the great Joel Embiid, you know, he dealt with an injury earlier coming into the playoffs. The great Trae Young, his offensive output will be among the storylines. This was a game where Atlanta got game 1 in this series. Doc Rivers and Philly came back and said, not so fast, my friend. And they ate a lot of Big C burgers. They know it's a tasty burger. They know it comes with exotic meats. And they said the only thing missing from their Big C burger was Hawk meat. Will the Hawks jump off the grill the way the Bucks did against Brooklyn? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Chauncey, you got to make sure you pluck all the feathers before you put a bird on the grill and give it a little sting flavor that you don't really care about the food. But I mean, this is a critical game for the Hawks at home. They cannot afford to go down 3-1 and lose all of that home court advantage that they had gained, Chauncey, by splitting in Philadelphia. The big X factor in this game has been Joel Embiid. When you think about this series, Charlton, Joel Embiid is averaging 1 point every minute that he plays.
Wow.
That is an NBA all-time record, averaging 1 point every minute he plays.
Yeah.
So the Hawks have to find some way to figure out some defense. I know that the Sixers will be without Danny Green. That will hurt their backcourt, a little bit because now you got to rely more on Ben Simmons shooting the ball. But you got to push Ben Simmons off of the block. You cannot afford to let him get comfortable because averaging a minute a game, Charlton, they may play him 40 minutes tonight.
Yeah, they may play him 40 minutes tonight. And when you think about it, the 76ers, they were riding high as the conference #1 seed, 23-12. They haven't surrendered that perch since that. But the margin between them and the competition shrunk since that date. The 76ers are 30-12. The Hawks are 31-12. And the Hawks usually win at home when they're the underdog. Philadelphia usually wins on the road. But at the same time, the trend is like Atlanta, not only they have to win this game. If they don't win this game, Big C, they're just looking at saying, hey, we won one game, but this team is a lot better than getting one win, especially under McMillan and how well they play. They just got to remember they got to drive down in the paint and not try to live in the basket of threes, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it shows how important DeAndre Hunter was to the Atlanta Hawks. You take 17 points out of the starting lineup, and it has really hurt them. And probably their best defensive player also.
Yeah.
He was more like a Dennis Rodman-type defensive player. And they missed him because he's had knee surgery, so he's lost for the rest of the year, regardless of how far the Hawks gone. Trae Young, what they did with him was they went Kevin Durant on Trae Young. They got physical.
Yeah.
They keep pushing him off of his spot. They're not allowing him to penetrate with those floaters that he was getting in the first two games in Philadelphia, Charlton. They clamped down on that, and the Hawks have been left in a little bit of disarray.
Yeah.
I mean, Gallinari needs to have a real big game for the Hawks. I mean, he's coming off the bench. He needs to be able to knock down 22, 24 points tonight if the Hawks have a chance to win. John Collins needs to show up again offensively. He was been a little sluggish the last two games, Charlton. But Gallinari and Collins, if they can have big games, the Hawks can win.
You know, it's interesting. Even in a loss, the 76ers scored 124 points. They lost 128-124, game one. Game two, they scored 118 points. They won 118-102. Game three, they won 127-111. Game four tonight, Atlanta has only been over 111 points one time, and that was game one. They got to revert back to that, but they are missing a lot of power down inside Big C. Do they run Philadelphia and try to make them run a full-court game, a fast game? Because if they try to go slow and set up and run their offense, Big C, that gives Philly a time to rest. Maybe they got to run Jerry Tarkanian style and try to get back into the series, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, mobility is big for them if they run, but they have to just not settle for three-point shots when they're running, Charlton. Go down in the paint, get some old-fashioned threes, take it to the 10. What you want to do is challenge Embiid, force him to play defense. What Atlanta has done is allowed him to rest on defense and play offense because he's out there launching from the three-point arc out there, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you're not forcing the big man to play defense. You're not getting him in foul trouble. And like I said, he's averaging 1 point per minute. That's because he's on the floor. If he's in foul trouble and has to miss some significant time, the Hawks can win.
Yeah, the Hawks is all fair in 11 war. I was doing something today. I had a couple of meetings this morning, and I went to get out of my car, and I saw these turkeys. They look like birds of prey. I mean, these turkeys must have been, they felt like they were like 7 feet tall. I kid you not. I got back in my car, drove around the other parking lot. It's not even Thanksgiving season. Have you ever seen a 7-foot-tall turkey, Big C?
Well, yeah, Charlton, I went to zoo. They call ostriches. Yeah. You got to recognize those turkeys with the glasses along with that toothpick.
Well, maybe I was at the zoo, but it wasn't the zoo. I could have swear these turkeys were like 7 feet tall, and there were like 9 of them. They were walking around like they were waiting for people to get out of their cars. Go ahead, get out of your car, see if you make it back home. It's all fair level war. Speaking of getting out of your car, and some 7 feet tall turkeys. Guys look like turkeys skating around on ice in the NHL playoffs. In the chase for Lord Stanley's Cup, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, Big C, they are ready for underdog, the Montreal Canadiens, if you can believe they're underdogs. Game 1 is Lord Stanley Cup semifinals between the New York Islanders and Tampa Bay Lightning, Big C. That's also a good matchup. Can the Montreal Canadiens continue to shock the hockey universe against the Golden Knights, Big C? Your thoughts?
I think Fleury will have an outstanding game at net tonight, Charlton, for the Vegas Knights. I mean, Montreal has been hot. They've rolled in. They've won their last 7 consecutive games in the NHL playoffs, Charlton.
Yep.
But coming down to Vegas is going to be a different story. I mean, the Las Vegas Golden Knights have been in the Stanley Cup 3 out of the last 4 Stanley Cup semifinals,
Yep.
3 out of the last 4 years, Charlton. And I think they're going to make it back to the Stanley Cup for the second time in the 4th year of existence.
Yeah, so maybe what I did see, maybe I didn't see some road turkeys. Maybe I saw some hockey guys rolling around because they were warming around. Like, go ahead, get out of that car if you're there. It's all fair and level. Well, rumor has it, when you're in Las Vegas, they like to send up what's called room service. Should they decline it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when you think about it, you're not going to get much better road service than what you get in Montreal. It's a great metropolitan city. I know Vegas is the city of light, but Montreal is the city of love, and there won't be any love out on the ice tonight.
What's love got to do? The great Tina Turner is off there in Level Ward. When you think about the New York Islanders, their fans are a lot better behaved than the New York Knicks fans. They don't spit loogies on people. They don't call people you blankety blank, you muckety muck, Big C. And they've gotten New York City with a chance to take on the powerful Tampa Bay Lightning looking for Lord Stanley's Cup. But this Tampa Bay team, Big C, they've been here before, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they were there last year, Charlton, when they won the Stanley Cup, but they find themselves in the dubious distinction of being down 0-1 against the New York Islanders, Charlton. They snuck in game 1, took a 2-1 command lead, Charlton, and won that game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning was not prepared for that after sweeping their last series. But, this is a team of resilience, and I see them evening up the series tonight, Charlton. But Tampa Bay is a great team, but New York got that one-up on them last night.
Yeah, they got that one-up on them last night. It's all fair and level. We're really liking the way things are happening in the world of NHL Lord Stanley. I'm going to call it Lord Stanley's Big Cup. It's all fair. It's Lord Stanley's Big Cup. It's all fair and level. Or Big C in tennis. Sometimes we got to go across the pond. The great Novak Djokovic, Big C, after winning the French Open, a golden slam is actually possible. I didn't get to see much of this tennis tournament over the weekend, Big C, but you think about it. He said he's put himself in good position. How likely is a golden slam for the great Novak Djokovic, Big C, after winning the French Open? The slam could be for the great Novak Djokovic after winning the French Open, but how likely is it? He has to win Wimbledon and then the Olympics and the U.S. Open, Big C. He beat Stefano Tipsy in the final of the French Open to clinch his 19th Grand Slam title and move just one behind the great Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal for all-time standings. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, being on the grass at Wimbledon, Charlton, he's right at home. And, I mean, he'll go into Wimbledon as the favorite. I mean, beating Nadal on the clay at Roland Garros was a marvelous feat, and he did it in 4 straight sets. I mean, Djokovic right now is at the top of his game. Everybody understands that. Even Federer had to withdraw from the French Open, Charlton, and Nadal has never been as dominant on grass as he is on clay. There's always some young upstart that can come along, but Djokovic right now is the intimidator out on the clay court and the grass court.
Yeah, he's like those big turkeys that I saw walking around. I said, I'm not getting out of the car. It ain't that fooling me. I don't know if it's Halloween early or what it was, but you think about Djokovic, only previously win in Paris was in 2016, and he'd only reached the final once since then, Big C, but 2 Grand Slams already won this year. He will start as the firm favorite in London and New York City, Big C. He has won the last 2 editions of Wimbledon last year and wasn't played due to COVID-19 pandemic, but he has won 3 times at the U.S. Open. Looks like a great tennis affair whenever he's out there. We got to appreciate guys like Djokovic and guys like Chris Paul, LeBron James. They don't eat Serena Williams. They're not getting any younger, but whatever they're drinking makes them play younger, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the dominance of athletic therapy nowadays. I mean, guys who want to stay on top of the game can stay there, because when you take care of your body will take care of you.
Yeah, when you take care of your body will take care of you. Just make sure we're all doing what we can. Stay hydrated during this time of year as the heat is starting to rise all over this great country. Big C, the pitch, hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run! Boys hitting the home run. Girls love the long ball, and men love hitting it deep. It's all fair and level. War tonight's schedule, for a beautiful June 14th. We have the Pirates at the Nationals. The Cubs are at the Mets. We have the Orioles at the Indians, Big C. There's a lot of good baseball. I know we even have the defending, I won't say defending, but they are the first place San Francisco Giants. They are doing a lot to make the baseball universe stand on its head. But I love there's a lot of good baseball. Chicago at the Mets, Big C. Toronto at Boston. Detroit at Kansas City. We have Tampa Bay. They're doing their thing, and they're playing at the Chicago White Sox. La Russa has those good boys playing great. Cincinnati at Milwaukee. The Miami Marlins at St. Louis. San Diego at Colorado. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim at Oakland in Northern California. Arizona at the first place San Francisco Giants at City by the Bay. Minnesota Twins at Seattle. Philadelphia at the defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Big C, I saw so many great pitchers going. You know, we had these no-hitters. I guess they stopped this month, but it seems like we were on pace for 19 no-hitters. I think we had 7, but now because it's maybe getting warmer, more players are starting to take it deep. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think it comes more from everybody talking about the group that was on the baseball, Charlton, as umpires have been instructed to pay more attention to pitchers doctoring up the ball and players not being as, fooled by the pitches that are coming up with the spin rate changing on the ball, Charlton. That led to a lot of those no-hitters that we saw when pitchers had the advantage on the mound.
Yeah. That's interesting. I forgot about that. I thought everything was illegal to put on your ball when you want to throw it. It's my ball. I put what I want to put on it, Big C, even though it's off. If that makes sense to you, the power rankings, Big C's power rankings for this week, June 14th, 2021, the Tampa Bay Rays doing their thing. The defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers coming in at number 2. You look at the Tony La Russa, the Chicago White Sox. Big C, the White Sox have won 15 of their past 20 games, even while he's taking a nap in the dugout. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, as you look at baseball right now, Charlton, as it moves along and it's trying to get over the 60-game mark in the season, or you're trying to get to that third way point. I mean, we can rank teams up and down at this point of the season, Charlton, but what happens, after the All-Star break and you get down to that last 3 weeks of baseball is really what's going to be critical.
Yeah, the Giants, speaking of critical, the San Francisco Giants, City by the Bay, they spent more time on the road this year than any team in baseball. Are about to play 10 of the next 12 games versus the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, and the A's at home. That's looking good for the San Francisco Giants. And also the San Diego Padres coming at number 5. Think about this team. This is a great baseball team led by Fernando Tatis Jr., injecting some life into the anemic Padres offense for a time. But this is the team on the West Coast where you have the Dodgers, you have the Giants, and the Padres coming in the top 5 in the baseball power rankings. That's looking good for the National League West. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's almost like saying fool's gold, Charlton, because how many teams can represent the West in the playoffs when you get to that point of the year? Early adjustments, Charlton, by teams to get them to this point. But when you look at the playoffs is going to be split evenly based upon division.
Yeah.
And so having these power rankings where you got all the teams in one division doesn't do anything when it comes down to playoff time.
It comes down to play, and it comes down to being healthy, just like in the NBA. A lot of good players are just banged up, and I know maybe it's catching up to his Big C, trying to force a season along as opposed to giving players the time to heal. Sometimes the universe can send you a clue when it's time to pause. The rest of the field, the top 10, the Astros of Houston coming in number 6. The Oakland A's coming in at number 7. 2 Bay Area teams clocking the top 7 in the baseball power rankings. The Red Sox out of Boston doing their things. The Chicago Cubs, Big C, and then the Mets. Going back to the Cubs, I think they are allowing 100% capacity at Wrigley Field in Chicago. I know COVID is what it is, Big C, but it sure was electrifying to watch the Cubs. They blanked the St. Louis Cardinals, and to have that old Harry Carey, take me out to the ball game. That crowd was amazing. It kind of makes baseball feel real again, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, even tomorrow, California opens up to 100%, COVID-free zones, Charlton, where you can go to all of the sporting events, 100% capacity and everything else, restaurants and all. California opens up to 100% tomorrow.
It's all fair in love and war as they open up 100% tomorrow, and people are going to do whatever they can to stay healthy and be vaccinated. I appreciate the people that are doing whatever they can to make sure you keep washing your hands and keep social distancing no matter what people are going to say to you. I want to touch a little bit on some African American history. It's a thing for people to Google. It's one thing if we say something, but people can Google. W.E.B. Du Bois Society of James Madison College is an organization fighting to achieve racial justice through continued education. I asked people to Google the great W.E.B. Du Bois, or some people call him W.E.B. Du Bois, as he was a scholar on associate studies of black history and making sure that people can achieve liberty and justice for all. Big C, as we come up on the close of our show, Major League Baseball is great. NHL hockey is great. Of course, everybody loves NBA basketball. And of course, when you get into any kind of sport, is great. We're coming up on the Olympics, and it's going to be July 23rd that they start the Olympics. Just about a month and a little bit of, a month and a half away. They're expecting 339 events. You talked about they're getting, I guess everybody's going to be open for full capacity in California. They've already done it down south. The hope for the Olympics that we did not have last year, we've seen the impact of crowds in baseball and football arenas, Big C, and basketball arenas outside of Staples Centers where they have cutout fans. It's all fair love and war. What will it be like to have the Olympics in Tokyo in front of a packed house for the human spirit, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to get the games off first. There's still no guarantee that it's going to take place. But, it's an exciting world event. You think about all the activities that go on and how long athletes have trained to have this opportunity to be on the world stage, to compete against the world best, Charlton, especially from an amateur perspective, those athletes that don't have the $1 million contract to go out there and they compete for the pureness of the sport. And to have the grandstands full, Charlton, is all what every athlete always aspires for.
Yeah, every athlete does. UFC 263, Adesanya got another win. He's now 21-1. That good boy was a 5-round decision, and his fight is all fair in 11. I was pulling for Diaz, but he didn't get to the victory belt, Big C, in his fight out of Northern California. It's all fair in 11 war in the world of the UFC. I want to close out on a talk of what some people consider maybe they're playing too many games. I don't know if too many games makes any difference because you can always quit or withdraw. But NCAA baseball, the super regionals, basically, the scores, schedules, College World Series film is set. It's nearly set, in fact, coming up on June 14th. There's a lot of great players, a lot of great baseballs being played all over this great country. Now, if you say the word in college, Virginia, whether it's football or basketball or baseball, everybody kind of knows they're a power program, Division I program. But when you go with a school like Dallas Baptist, no one knows who Dallas Baptist is. Some people in Texas don't even know there's a Dallas Baptist. But it's good to have when you have the Goliath and David's matchup in the world of baseball. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you do it in baseball, why don't you do it in football? Why don't you give those smaller schools an opportunity to compete in the college football playoffs that you're going to expand it? You should open it up for everybody. But this is what happens in hockey, baseball, and basketball, Charlton. It allows the non-Power 5 and 1A schools, Charlton, to compete against these smaller schools. And, it's about athletes. When you have the athletes, and especially in a sport like baseball and hockey, Charlton, when you think about the teams that have won the national championships or have an opportunity to win the national championships, in football they consider 1AA. Yeah,
and they also have Division III and NAIA. It's all fair and level one. But there's some major names out there that are in the tournament. Stanford's in. We also have the Arkansas, North Carolina State. Those programs have been out there. They're national powers. It's good to see those names. Texas versus South Florida. South Florida's really turned around their football program to national prominence. Tennessee and LSU, them good boys are making noise. Vanderbilt, East Carolina. Vanderbilt has one of the stronger programs coming out of the SEC every year. Arizona, Mississippi State, Big C, that's Pac-12 versus SEC. Can't wait till we get you good boys on the football fields as well. But I wish everybody nothing but the best. Stay hydrated, stay safe no matter what you're doing. Keep an eye on people, especially elderly people. As the heat index rising, they're expecting almost 110 degrees in Northern California over the next week. Big C, how do you guys do it in the South where humidity's 100 degrees, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we're sweating all the time, so we're taking that outdoor shower. It seems that the clothes always sweat, get a little breeze, and we cool right off.
Yeah, outdoor showers are all good. I think those 7 turkeys that I saw walking around my car, they were trying to take an outdoor shower. I just had a fear they were trying to use me as a soap. I didn't want to be the soap, Big C. Is this the man who wrecked the buffet at the Hera Club this morning? I did not want to be the soap. It's all fair and level war. WNBA is off tonight, but NBA action is doing their thing. There's a lot of good old boys on the Pacific Rim called Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. They're looking to rise again and ride that surf, Big C. Down south, will the Philadelphia 76ers get back on that plane and go back to Philadelphia with a bag full of wet turkey wings, Big C? Your thoughts are hawk wings. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the Sixers have done everything they can. You're talking about the scoring barrage that they've been putting on the Atlanta Hawks, and nobody's been able to slow down Joel Embiid, averaging a point a minute in this playoff series versus the Hawks. Charlton, they just not gotten his face enough, and the Hawks have not gone to the basket. I think the Sixers will come out of here 3-1 tonight against Atlanta.
The great Donovan Mitchell's maybe on a hiccup, a hitch in his giddy up, Big C. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. They're waiting for him with those surfboards. They heard that people don't normally go surfing in Utah. Will the Clippers surf their way to tie this series tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
I don't think that the Clippers will even up this series tonight, Charlton. Yes, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have been playing tremendous together, Charlton. Over 10 games, they've averaged 20-plus points and 10-plus rebounds a game. But they can still do that, Charlton, but it's those fringe players, Charlton, that you got to get the points from. I don't know if their bench is going to be able to produce tonight against Utah. Look at English to have a big game for Utah tonight.
Well, I heard there was a great musician, I think it was called Boy George. The tide is high and I'm holding on. The tide is high as the Clippers will rise today. I want to say thank you. This segment sponsored by the Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol. 100% of your game. Also the Big C Burger. It is a tasty burger and it comes with exotic meats. It's all fair and level war. Big C, time to rise and shine. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, as Utah tries to keep the Clippers from having a home court sweep and tying up this series, Charlton, I got to get you a toothbrush so you can sweep off those teeth that you got in some glasses so you can see the score at the end of the night, Charlton. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders, Charlton. We're going to have to get you sent to an ophthalmologist so you understand what you're seeing.
It's all the exotic meat. You will see the exotic surf rise on the West Coast. It's all fair and level. You can go surfing too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you rise and shine and follow the Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network on the #1 network in the United States of America, iHeartRadio podcast. And as we always tell you, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. As my mama always says, no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.